Well, almost all the fans of Sunrise Daily know that I'm pretty reluctant to talk about 2023 in 2021. But if we know anything about politicians, we know that they already started thinking about 2023 the day that the 2019 elections were concluded. And so we have a situation whereby it will seem that electioneering or moves towards the next elections already started way before even governance for the next 4 years could even be talked about. But this is where we are now. We cannot pretend about it anymore. 2023 and the jugglings around it is already upon us, even though we're still in 2021. But if 2023 is going to happen, as it will happen, you know, by the special grace of God, even though there's been a lot of talk around the security situation in the country as a result of all that has been happening, and people are afraid of what could happen in 2023, how is it going to happen? What are the key changes that must be made to ensure that the process that we have continues to get better and not get flawed? Well, one of them is what you just heard the INEC chairman talk about. It's talking about creating new polling units so that we can decongest the current polling units that we have. In times past, it's been controversial, but it would seem that now it has gone down without too much of a controversy, but maybe I'm speaking too early. We also have people, stakeholders, who have been speaking very clearly about what they expect should happen in 2023 and have also written a letter to the INEC chairman to, you know, to recommend what they think should happen. One of them is architect Nya-Etok, who is the Director General of Nigeria First Project, and he joins us this morning. Mr. Etok, it's good to see you on our show.
Always a pleasure to be on Channels. Thanks for having me.
Well, you have written a letter to the INEC chairman ahead of the 2023 elections, which is still at least 2 years away. Isn't that too early?
No, not at all. If anything, I think we are so much behind time. When you know what election is all about, you realize that time is everything about elections. Time for you to make the necessary preparations, time for you to wake the people to new realities, you to let people understand whatever steps have been put in place, to the end that a year before the elections, people know what they are doing, they know where they are going, they understand what it's all about, they know the roles of every player, they understand the rules of the game, and they prepare accordingly. There are people who would not want to be part of a process because they don't believe in the integrity, but there are certain things they would see put in place and they were like, this makes sense. So this issue of, you know, the black sheep at night, where everybody is looking for the sheep that is just tied next to them, and then suddenly the light comes on and they're like, oh, this is the sheep. I mean, the light should have come on all along, and all the time that would have been wasted in looking for the black sheep would have been avoided. I think that 2023 is late already, but the next best day to start is today.
I'm looking at the details of the letter that you wrote to the INEC chairman, something about making key changes ahead of 2023. And I'm wondering how you expect him to, you know, respond to this letter. You've talked about the compromise of INEC staff, and you're wondering if anything is going to be done about it. Some people are willing to compromise their integrity to just for money, for monetary rewards, and it would seem that the rewards oftentimes are really mouth-watering. Should we be talking to INEC staff, or should we be talking to the people, the politicians who actually make this sometimes irresistible offers?
Two things. The very first thing is that we have not really come to appreciate what election is all about, what governance is all about. We seem to have accepted this very terrible situation that, well, some people come, offer us some stuff, we give them the votes, they go and run the show. We are so detached, and we don't realize that the next most important institution after God is government. Government runs our lives. Government determines everything that we do. Today, Government can decide to ban every form of electronic media. Today, government can decide that every Friday you must wear tie wrapper as a man. You cannot wear trouser in Nigeria on Fridays in Nigeria. Government can decide almost anything about your life. And for such an important institution, we need to have a mindset reset to look at it again, interrogate the processes of getting the people there. I just gave this little illustration. Imagine that your child is to be sent to school and you put the child in a bus. And then somebody comes to whisper in your ears and says, the driver of that bus has a problem. He doesn't see well. The next thing you do is rush to that bus and yank your child off because you're not going to take such a risk. And yet, government is the vehicle that carries all of us. And we do not take time to interrogate the processes of the drivers of that vehicle. So, to that extent, the political process has been so commercialized that talking to the man who is getting there for profit doesn't make much sense. If anything, we need to talk to Nigerian citizens, and then we also talk to the managers of the processes. I happen to have a personal relationship, I said that in that letter, with the national chairman of INEC, and he bought my loyalty and my respect the very first day I met him. You know, I was the national chairman of a party, and that was the first address he was making to IPAC, and I was there as a national chairman. And the first thing he said is that I would like certain powers to be taken from me because I don't have the capacity to effectively exercise such powers relating to prosecution of electoral crimes. And it was rare for a Nigerian to say, take some powers away from me so I can concentrate on my core. This as far back as about 2015, 2016, you know? And I loved it that I could see a man who wants to get things done as opposed to a country where everybody's looking for powers and powers and powers. Even what they cannot do, they say, doesn't matter, just give me the powers, as situated in the presidency. The things that Mr. President should say, look, send this out, this issue of a exclusive list, send this out to the states, give them the money so I can concentrate on what matters. But the presidency wants to control the healthcare in my village to micromanage this process. It doesn't make sense. So INEC chairman is somebody I know I can talk to, and when he listens and sees superior argument, he will take certain processes and then we will back up that process, because like sending anything to the National Assembly, as individuals, we can't do it, but we can encourage him to send in such a bill, executive bill, so to speak, and then we as civil society, as individuals, we can back him to make sure that the processes have the integrity that will stand the test of time.
I'm looking at your comments on the party because you divide your statements into points, and I think the party takes a really huge chunk of the conversation there. I'm looking at this one where you say that he shouldn't deregister party, even though you talk about how the parties have become business ventures, so to speak, and that sometimes some parties, or many times, some parties are created just to make money off the election process by negotiating with other parties, other bigger parties, and going home afterwards, not being serious about the process. Yet you say INEC do not deregister the political parties. Instead, make the demands more stringent so that you can sift wheat from chaff. I'm wondering how feasible. Do you really think that INEC has the time for all of that? For an institution that is saying, take away powers from me, let me just concentrate on, focusing, let me concentrate on the process itself rather than, prosecution. Do you really think that INEC will be able to go through this very elaborate and complicated process, which you have stated here, to sift wheat from chaff?
Thank you for that very, very important question. We must realize what government is. Government is not a fast food center. Government is a long-haul project. Government, this mentality of the military of here and now, we must come to sit down and interrogate it. The processes leading to fair, credible elections are such that you don't ask me if I have the time. They are foundational. They are fundamental. There are things that are inevitable, what you may call the inevitable concomitants. There are things that you cannot do without. One of them is, how do I have an electoral process that is sustainable? That's why I'm so upset with the National Assembly that 2 years to election, 2 years from the last election, we're not saying anything about the electoral bill. We're not saying, we're just, okay, we will. And they want to just wait until that last moment and they start to rush like it happened the last time. And the president will say, it's too close to election, we can't do it. Why can't we just think in terms of doing things right foundationally? Going back to what I said, now, if 10 years down the line, there's such amazing, free, fair, credible elections in Nigeria, and people say, how did it happen? And they said, in the year 2020, there was an INEC chairman that came in and said, we have 91 political parties. That is too much on the ballot. That's too much. That's confusing. I would like to have just 20 maximum. How do I do that? I'll tell you what I'll do. Number one, I'm going to ask all political parties to register their members. It's going to, parties is serious business. Every party is government, either in power or in waiting. And for you to be government, you must be organized, you must understand your process, and you must do things properly. And for you to do that, I'm going to say 91 political parties, no problem. I'm going to have a midterm election, what I call midterm election, which is like 2 years to the elections. I'm going to ask you to have your membership in 3 categories. Category A is members with PVC who have paid their membership dues. These are financially active members. Category B is going to be members with PVC who do not subscribe to the dues of the party. Number 3 is maybe junior members. If you don't have PVC or you're a junior, those are people that we are training to become like party members. So midterm, category A, members with PVC, whom I have your database, because INEC must custody this. I'm going to ask all of you on the 20th of this month to do a voting between 8 a.m. and 2 p.m. on which parties should be on the ballot. And I'm going to take the top 20. Now, this process is very transparent, and because it's not just 1 or 2, people are going to be more relaxed, and they mobilize their members and say, you've got to vote, we must be on the ballot. Now, by the time you don't spend a dime. INEC does not spend a penny because the infrastructure is already there. So at the end of that day, the result is shown. All the chairmen, they know, well, these are the parties that are going to be on the ballot. As a result of that, you have to prepare yourself. Now, you do not deregister the others. You tell them to go to town against the next election cycle so that the parties keep mobilizing, the parties keep getting stronger, the competition becomes, more transparent, and party politics becomes more robust. But by the time you deregister all these people, look at what happened in 2019. I was a major player because I contested. A man like, let me be specific, Andy Uba, he was denied ticket on the big platforms. He went to YPP. He took that because he knew he was popular. He knew that he connected with the people. He knew that there's a difference between primaries and main election, and that he needed a ticket. He got the ticket and he won a senatorial seat. That's instructive. Assuming there were just 5 parties, come to Akwa Ibom, for instance, we were 45 parties that registered. Out of the 45, only 4 of us got to the ballot. Only 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 got to the ballot. The other 41 endorsed, and for the endorsement, they were handsomely rewarded. So this process has to be such that you use, technology to sift the wheat from the chaff. And it's a process that we have, undertaken a lot of integrity tests because we have a very robust, political machinery that cuts across, and we interrogate all these processes. And it was really, really interrogated before we now forwarded it to the national chairman of INEC to take a good look at.
Well, I thank you for all the comments that you've made. My concern is for 2 constituencies. The young population, which you know very well, and have already, you have a personal policy on that one, of transferring, to the youth, so
responsibility.
To speak. Yeah, transferring responsibility to the youth. There, about 70%, 60-70% of the voting population in the country. I'm concerned about how we are even engaging them or even factoring them into our conversations, in all of these that we're talking about. The second that I'm concerned with is the local government level. So in improving the electoral process ahead of 2023, how do you see us machinating these two constituencies into mainstream? Because it would seem like unless you do that, we're going to scratch the surface of solutions.
Thanks. That's a very wonderful question as well, Ayo. But the question is, did I call you Ayo? But the question is, how do we enlighten the youth to understand what government is all about? There's a major disconnect between the youth and government and governance. That's the biggest challenge I've had. And I've tried everything as an individual to let the young people know that government is not just that stuff that is detached and they just come once in a while to give you some money and then run away. Government is about your future and this is your time. I said something on Twitter that really went viral. I said that children are leaders of tomorrow. Youths are leaders of today. At 21, I was a youth. I'd gotten my first degree. At 23, I was a youth. I'd gotten my master's. At 25, I had married. At 31, I'd had my 3 children. And you call me a father, a youth? At 37, I became the first Nigerian that got the shelter Africa facility for any state government in this country. At 37. And you call me a leader of tomorrow? It doesn't make sense. Our youth are the leaders of today. So we need to enlighten them. And the more we enlighten them, the more that they see the light and get involved in a political processes. That's why I talk about responsibility transfer to the youth. I don't talk about power transfer. No, because governance is responsibility. Governance is power. It's not power. Governance is not power. Governance is primarily responsibility. Because if you look at the marching order of government or governance, it's encapsulated, well captured in our constitution. In chapter 2, section 14, subsection 2b, it says clearly that the security and welfare of the people shall be the primary purpose of government. This primary purpose of government has been lost. And as a result, government has become a monetized enterprise. So we are enlightening the youth. We are talking to the youth. We are engaging the youth. And the more we do, the more enlightened they are. And they discover this is really serious business, number one. Number two, this is really our time. So what we need to do in answering your question directly is massive enlightenment of the youth. And they are responding. I can tell you that for a fact.
So you have said, you have acknowledged the fact that the INEC chairman is your personal, you have a personal relationship with him. With this letter that you have written, one, what sort of response are you hoping to get? And are you confident that, some significant changes will be made as we, head towards 2023?
Let me say 2 things. The very first thing is that I was pleasantly surprised when he went for his confirmation and he said, I want full electronic voting. It took so much courage. The reason is that, with all due respect to a lot of very good, responsible, mature, proper people in the National Assembly, I will say this with every sense of responsibility again, that over 50, 60, 70% of the people that are there will not be there if you have free, fair, credible elections. As a result, because of what you may call, the concept of self-preservation, to what extent are they willing to alter those laws? I'm telling you that INEC chairman must not be a lone voice in the wilderness. We must rise up as a people and give him that audacity, give him that backbone. Let him not be like him talking alone. Something happened in, when Governor Atta was he was a governor, and he was talking about, this resource control. And Mr. President then said he was just talking alone. I launched a program where Akwa Ibomites from all walks of life, across party politics and everything, came and said, no, he's speaking for us, he's speaking for us, he's speaking for us. And that gave him the impetus to march on, knowing that he was not a lone voice. The INEC chairman must not be a lone voice. And I'm very happy with Yaga Africa, CDC, and the Nigeria First that are coming up, the ANC fronts that are coming up and giving him all the muscles that is needed. Unless there is that electoral act that is passed, or electoral bill is passed into an act, senators said within the first half of this year, it was the first quarter, they moved it to the first half. Trust me, it's not going to move beyond that, because the latest by June, July, we must have a document, a working document that gives legal backing to electoral processes being completely what's the word, run on electronic basis. Once that is done, if not so, once there is no law that gives that legal backing, you discover that you go to Supreme Court, and Supreme Court will throw your case away. So good people are still worried about stepping into the political circle. But the moment that they give teeth by legal backing to electronic transmission of results, you will see what will happen. And this is what thing that the president must do for us.
Well, we have to thank you so much for sharing your thoughts this morning. We also will be looking forward to seeing what significant changes will happen, even as we wait on the National Assembly to consider very strongly the Electoral Act and to see whether or not, electronic voting will be implemented or be included, as a lot of Nigerians are clamoring for.
It will be.
Ezekiel, Nya-Etok, thank you for your time this morning.
It will be. Thank you for having me.